Hey there, my name is Katie, and I wanted to make this video today because if you're anything like me, I had a problem with drinking too much alcohol. I was drinking a bottle of wine every single night at least. When I didn't have to work the next day, I would just binge drink and have a couple of bottles or have hard alcohol mixed in. And I would always scour the internet trying to find an answer to my problems with alcohol. The thing about me is that I did not want to quit drinking alcohol forever, because I really believed that I could get it under control, and that my nightly bottle of wine habit was something that had developed over time, and I really believed that I could rein it in and become a moderate drinker, and I just didn't know how to do that. When I first started drinking, I was a moderate drinker. I could have a couple of drinks and go days or weeks without drinking and not really think about it. But what happened over time is that it progressed and it got worse and worse and worse, and to a point where it was really unhealthy drinking levels and binge drinking and pretty much daily drinking for the better part of a decade. So in this video today, I wanted to just quickly tell you how it is that I finally broke my nightly bottle of wine habit and got to a place where I was genuinely a moderate drinker. In 2017, scouring YouTube, maybe like you are doing now, I stumbled upon a really now famous TED Talk by an actress named Claudia Christian, where she tells about how it is that she overcame alcoholism. And I'll link this TED Talk below in case you haven't seen it. But what she talks about in this talk is something known as the Sinclair Method. And the Sinclair Method involves the use of a medication. It's called Naltrexone. And Naltrexone, by the way, it's a generic medication, so it's very affordable. It's non-addictive. It's safe for most people, very few drug interactions. It does require a prescription, but it's, again, affordable and a very safe medication. But the Sinclair Method works by taking this medication, naltrexone, and you take it before you drink alcohol. So one of the most appealing things about this method for me was that I didn't have to quit drinking, because even though I struggled with alcohol for nearly a decade, I did try to quit drinking literally dozens of times, where I would have a really bad hangover or do or say something I really regretted, and I would think, this is it, I'm never drinking again. And what would happen is, whether it was a couple of days or a couple of weeks or a couple of months, I made it sober 6 months one time, I always knew I was going to drink again in the back of my mind, and I was always fighting those urges and cravings. And so I would try to quit drinking, proclaim to the world that I was going to quit drinking, and eventually I would return to it again. And so I knew that quitting cold turkey was not the answer for me, because it had never worked in the past. And in fact, I was kind of at a point when I learned about the Sinclair Method that, my cravings for alcohol, my desire to drink, my triggers and urges to drink were so strong that maybe I was just going to be a quote unquote alcoholic, which I hate that term and I don't use the term. But maybe that's what my life was going to be, because I just couldn't get sober. Maybe I was just going to be a really heavy drinker. So when I learned about the Sinclair Method and learned that it was more of what's commonly known as a harm reduction approach, or just an alcohol reduction approach, it really interested me. And as I looked more into it, I realized that there was so much data and evidence behind it as well, because this method was actually discovered over 30 years ago in Finland by a doctor named Dr. David Sinclair. And so he did a lot of research, both with rats in clinical trials and also with people. And he found that this method is proven to have a 78% success rate. It's been around for over 30 years. It's just not very well known yet. I think a big part of that is because, the primary treatment system as it exists today has been an abstinence-only based treatment system, very 12 steps, AA focused. And so this treatment protocol is a radically different approach, where you continue to drink alcohol in order to unlearn the patterns of alcohol use disorder or binge drinking, and really get to a place where you can have more control over alcohol. So the Sinclair Method works, as I was saying, by taking this medication, naltrexone, before you drink. It's taken in a specific targeted dose 1 to 2 hours before you drink. And what that medication does is it blocks these receptors in your brain that would otherwise be getting pleasure hormones or endorphins when you drink. The reason why alcohol is so addictive for a lot of people, anyone can get addicted to alcohol, is because it gives our brain a huge flood of endorphins and reward. It's really even twice the reward we get from things like food and sex, and even how we feel on our best day ever. And so that's why it's so easy for our brain to become trained to really like the reward from alcohol and remember that reward and continue to want it or crave it. And that's how we develop unhelpful drinking patterns. So you take this medication over time before you drink, and it's not like antabuse where it makes you sick. And in fact, a lot of people, there might be mild side effects to it in the beginning where you might have nausea or just feel sleepy or, other for most people, they're very mild side effects in the beginning, but they tend to go away within the first week or so. And after that, what happens for a lot of people is, they don't feel any effects of the medication. So it's not like antabuse. It's not an addictive medication at all. Sometimes I tell my clients that it's like, think of it like taking an over-the-counter aspirin medication or something. And in fact, for me, when I was on the treatment protocol, I would have to write down like, okay, I took the medication, because I would forget and, I wouldn't feel anything, and I would want to make sure I had it in my system before I drank. So you take this medication. It's a long-term treatment protocol, but you're just starting out by taking the medication an hour or two before you drink. And what's happening over time is that medication is blocking the reward your brain gets from alcohol. And alcohol can still be fun and pleasurable. Like sometimes people ask, well, if you're not getting the reward, what's the point? But what's happening is it's really done gradually over time. And that reward that you're getting, you're just not getting as much euphoria from alcohol. And I often tell people I enjoyed drinking more on this medication because I had control over my drinking. I used to drink at least a bottle of wine a night. And when I started the medication, gradually over time, this is a progressive treatment that really needs time to work. But gradually over time, I would get to a place where I'd have a glass or two and be satisfied and not want anymore. And so I stopped blacking out. I stopped having hangovers as I got started on this method. So how the method works is you just take that medication before you drink, 1 to 2 hours. You don't take it on non-drinking days. And over time, what it's doing is, because it's blocking the reward our brain gets from alcohol, people just gradually lose interest in alcohol. And when that happens, your cravings for alcohol really gradually fade away and ultimately go away permanently, to where you don't have any cravings or urges or compulsions to drink, like that mental chatter of like, I need a drink, oh, I shouldn't drink, is there enough alcohol here? I need another drink. Anybody who struggled with alcohol use disorder probably knows what I'm talking about. So that really fades away and goes away permanently over time through this method. And also people develop an off switch. So like I said, I could easily plow through a bottle of wine, no problem. And the longer I was on this method, I would just have more and more control over how much I drank. So I just wanted to make this quick video. My whole channel is about the Sinclair Method. I got on it in 2017, and it just radically changed my life to the point that I've devoted my life to spreading the word about this method and helping people through it. I offer an online program now, which more information is linked below, but this program really guides people through the Sinclair Method because it is a long-term treatment protocol. We typically tell our members to give it a year, just so you have that right frame of mind for how long it will take. Some people will respond really quickly to the medication and see faster results, and others it might take longer than a year, but a year is an average time frame for people to get to the end goal of this method, which is what's known as pharmacological extinction, or extinction for short. And that essentially means that the addiction or the alcohol use disorder that has been kind of wired in your brain and causing you to overdrink, your brain essentially gets rewired and reset to where you were at before you had alcohol use disorder. So thinking back to days, when you maybe had more control over alcohol, or before you started drinking, where, you didn't think about drinking, you didn't want to drink every day, your brain gets back to that place. And so we often tell people that the medication part and the Sinclair Method is about 50% of the equation of changing your relationship with alcohol. And the other 50% is really habit, lifestyle, coping, and behavior changes that come along with it. For me, as I said many times, I was drinking a bottle of wine every night. And so as I got going on this method, I could see that I didn't want to drink as much. I didn't want to drink every night anymore. And when I was drinking, I didn't want to drink a whole bottle anymore. So this gradually changed through using the medication, but what I found was that it was really easy for me to default back to my habit of, hey, let's crack open a bottle of wine after work every night, even though my brain didn't really want it as much. Kind of like how we can keep eating even though our brain's saying, hey, I'm not hungry or I'm full. And so the same thing can happen when we're in a habitual relationship with alcohol. That's one of the biggest challenges I see my clients face is the medication is working, they're losing their urges to drink, but they continue to drink every night or just more often than they want to because of the habit piece around it. So in our program, we help people change habits. The coping piece is another big one. I often find that people tend to drink for either relief, like a coping tool, or for reward, let's party kind of thing. And so people can drink for both reasons. And so, sometimes when people are using alcohol as a coping tool, for me, really hated my job when I started on this method, so I was drinking every night to kind of cope with the stress of that. Other people have gone through other traumatic life events and they're drinking for different coping reasons. So that's another thing as well. You know, if we're used to turning to alcohol as our numbing agent or our coping tool or our comfort blanket, we've got to teach ourselves new ways to cope, because even if we don't really want to drink because the medication is working, we've got to figure out, okay, well, how else do I cope with a stressful day or, you know, a loss of a loved one or whatever, you know, life throws at us. So I hope this video was helpful to introduce you to this method. It's a really, really powerful method. I've linked resources in the description box below for you to learn more about it. And again, my whole channel is about the Sinclair Method. I have tons of success stories of people who've gone on this method and lots of other content and resources just to kind of give you more information about it as well. So my contact information is below. If you have questions about it or the medication or anything like that, we'd be happy to support you. I'm just wishing you the best, whatever journey you go on. I know what it's like to struggle with alcohol. Like I said, I struggled for 10 years and tried so many different things and was so frustrated that nothing was working for me and I couldn't seem to stay alcohol free. But this method really met me where I was at, and it helped me to reduce my drinking over the course of a year. One thing I did forget to say is kind of give you an update of where I'm at today with it. So over the course of a year, starting in 2017, middle 2017 to middle 2018, I went on this method and my drinking just gradually decreased over time. I started as a bottle of wine a night drinker at least, and kind of binge drinking on the weekends. I was drinking about 150 drinks a month. And over time, it just gradually reduced from there. I would drink, you know, instead of drinking a whole bottle, I'd drink 3/4 of a bottle. Instead of drinking 7 days a week, I'd drink 6 days a week. And then it was 5 days. And then it was, you know, 4 days a week. And then I'd have only 2 glasses of wine. And it just gradually was decreasing over the course of the year, to where after a year on this method, I was drinking about 1 glass of wine once a month, just because I genuinely had no interest to drink more than that. And this was, you know, I'm someone who I tried to moderate my drinking before this. I think if you're watching this, you probably have too. And it's a lot of white knuckling, forcing yourself to control your drinking, a lot of like mental energy to just plan your drinking. And if you drink more than you planned, it's so frustrating. So I tried that for many, many times as well as trying to go sober. And so, but through this method, it's not the same thing, because your brain is healing from this alcohol use disorder. You genuinely lose interest in alcohol. And so after a year on the method, I was at a point where like I would forget to drink. I would pour a glass of wine and I'd go do something else, and an hour would go by and I'd be like, oh, I forgot I poured that wine, which that never ever happened before. And so after a year on this method, I ended up stopping drinking quite by accident. My whole goal of going on this method was to be a moderate drinker, which is possible. There's a lot of people that use this method and keep alcohol in their life for weddings or social occasions or you know, a couple nights a week or whatever your personal goals are. That's a great thing about this method, is it's really you set your own goals and you decide what type of relationship you want to have with alcohol. A lot of people, I'd say most people that use the method have moderate drinking as a goal and end up staying there. But for people like me, you know, the longer you're on the method, the better it works. And so I just got to a place where like I didn't really care about alcohol anymore. And so a month went by, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then it'd been literally 4 months since I drank. And I was like, well, I guess I'm not drinking anymore. Like I wasn't expecting that. But I still actually have a prescription to the Naltrexone medication, and I know that I have the option to drink if I want to. It's just been 3.5 years since I stopped drinking, and I honestly haven't wanted to. But what's great about this method again is that, you know, you have the option to drink if you want to. And a common question people ask is, do I have to take the medication forever? And yes, following this protocol, you always take the medication 1 to 2 hours before you drink, but you only take it on drinking days. So for a lot of people, the longer they're on the method, that means they're drinking once a week or once a month or a few times a month or whatever it is for them. So they're only taking the medication a few times. And I just want to encourage you, because I know for me, I'm like, I don't want to go on a medication, and I know people have reservations about going on a medication. So I would just say, like, put your beliefs and preconceived ideas aside. Like if you are struggling with a daily bottle of wine habit or 2 bottles of wine, or I just did an interview with someone that's going to be on my channel here soon. He was drinking 3 bottles of wine every night. And so wherever you're at with it, really you have nothing to lose trying this method. You know, the medication, it's very affordable. Like I said, it's a generic medication, and worst case scenario, you try it out and you don't like it, or you feel like it's not for you. But As I said earlier, this medication has been clinically proven in over 100 clinical trials. It has a success rate of 78%, which is just amazing. So most people who go on the method do really well and reach their personal goals with drinking. And so I think that's all for this video. I think this was longer than I expected it to be, but I really hope that it reaches people who are struggling like I was and scouring the internet, knowing that there's an answer out there. And you know, you're not going to give up until you find it. And so this is a great alternative to, you know, abstinence-based treatments out there. So again, contact information, more information is in the description below. Please reach out if we can help. I'm wishing you all the best. Bye.